Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received. The message reads like this. Good morning, Brother Nashi. Please read my own confession. I still cannot believe that one day I'll be able to tell my story, to relieve the emotional trauma, to open up old wounds. But even as I try to heal and move on, how do you move on from emotional scars? How does one move on from a wound that cannot be healed, no matter how hard you try? And I have felt, Brother Nashi, to love another man again. I got married to the love of my life when I was about 20 years old. By 25, I was blessed with 2 kids, but in my country, the politics were just bad, and whenever the politics are bad, nothing will ever work. Even the economy was not working. Everyone was facing economic hardships in the country. Well, maybe with the exception of the top brass and fat cats and the top ones. Even the well-learned were not getting jobs. International relations were bad. In fact, my country had been labeled a pariah state. So even the forex reserves were bad. Nothing was working at all. I still remember in those years that the shelves in the shops were empty. So my husband and some of his friends, mind you, my husband, he was a teacher at this other secondary school. He then spoke with me and he told me that him and some of his friends who were teachers, they had decided to cross into the neighboring country, into South Africa, to look for greener pastures. We agreed that I would go, but at the end of the day, my husband refused. Maybe if I had gone with my husband, maybe I would have died again. He said that for me to know that my kids are going to be safe, I want you to stay behind. I want you to go back to your mom's house. I want you to go back to your people so that you can take care of our kids. I don't know what fortune is going to bring to me in South Africa. But if God blesses me, then I am going to make a way so that you can come and join me in South Africa. My husband, me and I, we grew up together in the area where we grew up in, and a lot of professionals were leaving the country. Those that had the means to go to Europe, they were going to Europe. Those that were poor, they were just going on in a mass exodus into different countries here in SADC for better financial opportunities. My husband left and promised that things will be better for us all. I still remember on that night when we had to go and wait by the train station that was going to bring him to Chirezi so that he can reconnect and then come to Beitbridge. He was a responsible human being and a caring father, and I was hopeful. After my husband had left me, and I then went to my mom's house, but my mom, she got so sick. After my mom had passed away, that was when my grandmother, who was my mom's mom, said that she could no longer take care of me and take care of my kids. So I needed to go out there to find a job. The only place that was left to hustle, it was Harare. So I then left Chirezi and then I came to Harare. Life was very difficult. There was a drought. The rains had not been forthcoming. I tried, Brother Nashi, to go around the fields. You know that the old people, even when they are in the city, they are always having these fields. So I had spoken with this other old woman who had her home that was in Highfields, but she had a very large field that was in Waterfalls. So me and her would meet up at her field. Then we will start to plant, as well as she would give me some piece jobs. So I was able to buy some food, but I was unable to send anything to my grandmother. So she told me that I should come and collect my kids. I then went and I collected my kids and I started to stay with my kids in Harare. Life was very difficult, Brother Nashi. I ended up dating this other man. As I was dating this man, he was the one who was providing food for me. Because as for my husband, he was like a goner and he had never made any effort to contact me. Now and then, I would always contact his brother who was in South Africa because As for my husband, he had already found a job and he was supposed to go and work with his brother because his brother was working in Johannesburg at this other car wash. So he was supposed to be there, but whenever I would contact my brother-in-law, he would say that he has never heard anything from my husband, and he was suggesting that maybe my husband along the way had met a woman, maybe a local South African woman whom he was now staying with, hence he had forgotten about his family. I continued toiling and I continued feeding my kids with the money that my new boyfriend was giving to me. What was I supposed to do? For 3 years had passed and I had never heard from my husband and I had never made love to any man. That was when I allowed this man to come into my life because I wanted a man who was going to assist me. Brother Nashi, then we started to hear the rumors of people when they will be traveling to South Africa, like back in those days, people that would go through the Kruger National Park. Back in those days, the people that would go through the Kruger National Park. And my husband, he had also passed through Kruger National Park. The first time that I heard about it, at that time I was selling in the street, I was selling fruit and veggies. Then there was this other bus that was always coming from South Africa that had people that would have been deported from South Africa. There was this other man who had been mauled by a lioness, and that man, he was badly injured. He had said that as they were walking to South Africa, there was this other man who said that he knew the way, but along the way they met this other thugs that we used to call amagumaguma. Then everyone started running, trying to save their own lives. Then they got lost in the Kruger National Park, and that was when this man was mauled by that lioness. They were only saved by the soldiers. This man, he would have been eaten alive. At that time, Brother Nashi, when I heard that a lot of people that were dying, a lot of people that were passing through the Kruger National Park, those people, they were being eaten either by hyenas, leopards, or by lions. That man even said that as they were walking, they saw a lot of skulls and human bones. I'm sure that a lot of people, hundreds of people from Zim have died in the Kruger National Park on their way going to South Africa, but there is no one to speak about this issue. A lot of people, they are traumatized. A lot of people have lost their loved ones. And I kept on thinking about my husband as to why he was not communicating with me. There was a hatred there was this deep bitterness that was now developing in my heart, especially that now I was dating this man. Slowly but surely, I then accepted that my husband there in South Africa was now staying with a local woman. It was only after one of his friends sent a letter to me. This letter, Brother Nashi, it first got lost, then it went to another school that is in Chiredzi, but in the remote areas. This letter that was sent by my husband's friend, the letter had the information about the passing away of my husband. This letter, when it was sent from South Africa, it was sent in the year 2006. I only got to know about this letter. It was in late 2010. That was when I heard that there was a letter that had been sent by the post office to the wrong school. So many years had passed, I had actually forgotten about my husband. The time when my husband had traveled to South Africa, mobile phones, they were not quite a lot. There was no like your social media. So people, they were still writing and sending letters. This man, when he had arrived in South Africa, my husband's friend, he then wrote this letter. This man said that when they had arrived in Beitbridge, they saw that there were a lot of trucks that took them close to the Limpopo River, but there were soldiers there. He said that they hid throughout the night. Then early in the morning, somewhere around 4 a.m., that was when they started to walk towards the river. But at the place where they were supposed to cross, they saw some crocodiles. But those guys that were smuggling them across the border, these guys, they didn't care because they wanted money and they were going to be given their money once they will be on the other side of the river. But these guys then said, you must give us the money right now. So everyone then paid their monies, and those guys then said that we are going to be crossing, and if you do not want to cross, then you are going to remain behind. And they paid a lot of money. So they started to cross. The way that they were crossing the Limpopo River, the first one that was in front was holding the hand of the person that was right behind him or behind her. So they had formed this human chain. As they were crossing, that man said that they were being picked one by the crocodiles. A lot of people, he said, were taken by the crocodiles. And when they were now on the South African side, they heard that there were other thugs that were operating close by. So they started running. And as they were running, they ran in the opposite direction. Instead of headed for South Africa, they were now headed for Mozambique. They kept on walking and walking. The men said they walked for about 3 weeks until they saw that they were lost, because they didn't come across any villages. They just saw that they were in a dense forest. Little did they know that they were now in the Kruger National Parks. The moment that he noticed that something had gone wrong, it was when he had seen some male lions that were walking around as if there was a pride takeover that was happening. These lions, he said, there were 5 of them, and they were roaring and roaring, and then they met other 3 lions and they started to fight with each other. So they started to walk in another direction. That man then said, that was when my husband was attacked by a leopard. My husband, it was said that he had gone to relieve himself, and when he had gone behind this other tree, that was when they heard a loud growling sound, and they saw that this was a leopard that was attacking my husband. My husband was dragged up the tree, so this man said, and he was eaten by that leopard as the whole group watched, and they could not do anything about it. This man, when he wrote to me, he said that all that they were surviving on, there were those baobab fruits and drinking their own urine, because the water in that region, he said, is very salty. The only water that they could get was from their own urine. They spent so many weeks in Kruger until finally they reached this other village. That was when they were assisted by those villagers, and they found their way back into South Africa. Yeah, dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our dear sister. What a sad story, what a sad story. I wish that one day will be able to make a documentary to document these scary stories.